everybody, and welcome to another exciting adventure at the Hub World. Today's quest will have us covering the topic of Pokemon. My name is Jules, and today our party members are
Matteo
and Gino.
Whether you're joining our adventure from YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, be sure to like and subscribe. Let's get this adventure rolling. Welcome to part 3 of our Ideal 151 Pokédex series that we started. We'll kind of go over through a brief idea of what the rules are, but if you want that full breakdown of what we're doing, pop back to episode 1 and episode 2 to hear Matteo's Ideal 151 and my Ideal 151, and today we're going to cover Gino's Ideal 151. So what this is it's this idea of like, if we had to go back to that iconic number of 151 Pokemon and redo the Pokédex using all of the Pokemon available to us now, what would we create as our Ideal 151 Pokédex? But some of the limitations are we have to swap out lines to be the same kind of lines, so all 1 stages, 2 stages, and 3 stages need to still remain in that number. You have to consider that some Pokemon have gotten new evolutions and still remember to bring their full line in, replace legendaries for legendaries, starters for starters, etc., etc. If you want the full breakdown again, pop over to episode 1. But today we're going to cover our last Pokédex, at least for now. Perhaps we will have other members of the Hub World in the future return to this idea, but at least for now, the end of our 3-part saga culminates in Gino.
Also, quickly, by the end of Gen 9, when we find out the Gen 9 Pokédex, maybe we could update our own lists. So if there's a Pokemon that we really like there, we can swap it over, maybe just like share a picture or something. I think that would be a cool idea.
Yeah, could be. And I will say, this is a little addendum, but at least I know there's a couple Pokemon in each of our Pokédexes that will have to be removed if we do that, because according to leaks, some Pokemon may no longer be able to fit where we put them. But I will leave it as ambiguous as that, because I do not like discussing leaks. Gino, let's start your Ideal 151.
Alrighty, so I've kind of broken a lot of mine down based off of different kind of biomes. So I'll be describing what kind of biomes I see these Pokemon. So like, for instance, like I might have weird placements inside of the decks. I kind of am thinking more like what Kalos did, where like it's separated into different regions and there's a progression along that specific region. So if there's any like really strong or high tier Pokemon at like the first third of the decks, that's kind of why I was doing that. Right off for our starters, I have replaced Bulbasaur's line just like everybody else, and I decided to go in with Rowlet's line. So Rowlet, Dartrix, and Decidueye, but I wanted to have the fighting type Decidueye as the base one instead of the ghost, because I have a little bit of a theme with the starter trios that I have chosen. And just like everybody else, I have also kept Charmander's line. So Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard are staying on the decks. And I have, for the final 3, Squirtle, Wartortle, and Blastoise being replaced with Mudkip, Marshtomp, and Swampert. So coming in right away, we are entering my, quote, Plains biome. So starting off, I am replacing Caterpie, Metapod, and Butterfree with Blipbug, Dottler, and Orbeetle. These bugs here I thought were really cool from Gen 8. Orbeetle seems more like a defensive kind of oriented Pokemon. It's kind of big and bulky and things like that. And I am keeping Weedle, Kakuna, and Beedrill, being a very big offensive kind of bug type. So it'd be really kind of cool just to have that dichotomy. Orbeetle being psychic, Beedrill being poison. They're kind of like at odds with each other for types. And Mega Beedrill is my favorite Mega, so I have to keep that.
I'm not surprised at all, Gino, by the way. I'm like, I knew for sure you were going to have Orbeetle in there and Beedrill. I was like, I was anticipating it.
That's the first of the 3 things I can bet money that you're going to have on this list.
Yeah, so, Beedrill. I love Beedrill. So I've also gone and replaced the Bird line, Pidgey's line, with Corviknight's line. Rookidee, Corvisquire, and Corviknight. I think they're really cool, and Jules also mentioned how much he really liked this line. I personally am very attached to the idea of like this knight. Next up, I have replaced the regional rodents with my personal favorite 2-stage Pokemon, Shroomish and Breloom. I really like Breloom, especially back in the original Gen 4 Substa Punch days. Thought it was really cool to have those in there. And yeah, Breloom with Spore and Focus Punch and Substitutors was my favorite back then, so I had to include it. Next up, replacing Spearow and Fearow. Keeping with the bird theme, I'm going with Tailo and Swallow. Matteo already talked about this one in his list, and I feel like this 2-stage bird would be good. I didn't want to do like Vullaby's line just because I feel like they're too powerful, too strong.
And they evolve really, really, really late.
And for like a plain starter area, it feels like they work for that. Next up, replacing Ekans and Arbok.
No.
Yes, I have Toxel and Toxtricity.
Okay, fine.
So I'm replacing a poison for a poison, substituting in the electric type also because Pikachu's line would be coming next, and we can't have Pikachu here based on our rules. So Toxel and Toxtricity, you could get Toxel pretty early on in Gen 8 if I remember correctly if you sat and farmed the area properly. So I thought I would include it in here, and it's cute, and Toxtricity is a pretty cool boss where you get like 2 separate Pokemons.
I feel like Toxel, didn't you get it as an egg?
You could get it in as an egg, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but if you farmed an area out, if you wanted 2 of them, you could.
Yeah.
And that's what, because I remember in Gen 8, I actually had 2 on my team, one of one type, one of the other. It was weird. I couldn't fill my team in Gen 8. Okay, next up for the mascot, there's only one choice, and Matteo already picked it. It's Bidoof. Bidoof is the new mascot at 25.
Gino's the king of Bidoof.
And Bibarel is the Raichu of this gen, where everyone just kind of forgets it's there because Bidoof is so much better. Bidoof is one of my favorite Pokemon. I loved it right from the very beginning. I said it in Mateo's episode. I was an original Bidoof fan. Mateo hated it. Every time he was playing his DS and he found a Bidoof, he would yell and scream and be angry. And I'd be like, how can you hate Bidoof? It's just so derpy and great. I love it. So next up after that, I am keeping Sandshrews line, but I'm switching over to the Alolan variants for Ice and Steel because this brings in my Tundra motif or my Tundra biome set of Pokemon. So after you leave the plains, you're going to this like icy kind of tundra area, and Sandshrew and Sandslash are there. I do have the ground types in here also as like maybe like a low chance to get the original ones just for some variety. But Sandshrew, Sandslash are staying on my list. Next up, keeping to this kind of like barren ground tundra kind of vibe, I have a 3-part line. I have Swinub, Piloswine, and Mamoswine on here. They are probably my favorite ice type line. I've always very much associated with Mamoswine. Mamoswine is like this big bulky boss. Really cool, lots of fun when I was doing some competitive teams. To combat the ice ground mammoth, I also have Trapinch's line here, which is ends in Flygon, being ground dragon. And it's not OP like Garchomp is, in the sense for like a ground dragon 3-stage type. That's replacing...
Nidoking.
Yeah, so these are replacing all the Nido. So I've replaced poison types with ground types. So one being ice.
I mean, ground types with ground types, because Nidoking and Nidoqueen are ground.
Yeah, and Flygon being included and Bidoof being included were the other 2 things. I'm like, there's no way Gino doesn't have these on his list. So
I'm surprised Flygon came so early, to be honest. That's my...
Well, I want everyone to have Trapinch right from an early stage so they can get attached to it, and then they get Vibrava and Flygon afterwards. And then by the time like you would be in like your 30s and 40s and stuff for leveling and stuff, you'd have access to fly with Flygon and by then. So anyway, replacing Clefairy's line because they're a 3-stage now. You can't have them in there. And keeping with the Tundra kind of motif, I have Bergmite and Avalugg. But
interesting.
Hisui and Avalugg. Keeping with that like tundra rocky vibe, I thought I really like the new Avalugg being the rock type, especially now that we've had Legends Arceus. I thought it was really cool. This was one of those Pokemon that was very forgettable, and they put it in such a prominent role. And Ice Rock is a pretty interesting type combo.
I never knew somebody would like Avalugg. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Honestly, I always thought the concept was cool, like being like a glacier Pokemon. And lastly, ending my kind of like tundra theme, I have Onyx and Steelix because I really like Onyx and Steelix, and they're knocking out Vulpix and Ninetales. I was thinking about keeping Alolan Vulpix in there, but I was going to have a lot of ice types at the end of this, and I felt for like list diversity, I need more ground types in there because it is my favorite type. So that's why I'm doing that.
Really, ground is your favorite type? I thought it was bug.
Bug is one of my favorites also, but I really like ground because of Flygon. And Flygon looks like a bug. So
Spygon does look like a bug. That's
Yeah,
what I was gonna say. Is like it kind of makes sense.
This was a while back. We were doing kind of like our Elite Four with our group of friends, and Ground was the first team that I made, and then the second team that I made was Bug. Anyway, story time aside, we're moving into our forest area, but not just any forest, more kind of like a creepy forest. So I have Phantump and Trevenant knocking out Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff because Grass Ghost is a really cool type. I really like Trevenant. I have yet to farm out my shiny Trevenant, but it is something that, like, if Trevenant is coming in the next game, I'm definitely going to farm that out because I really like that type combo of Grass Ghost. And at a 2-stage, it's a haunted tree. Like, what's there not to love? Next up, keeping up with kind of like this forest kind of vibe, replacing Zubat and Golbat, I have Wooloo and Dubwool because memes, they're great. I love me some Super Wooloo bowling.
Wooloo is great, and Wooloo has a fantastic shiny. I would never use Wooloo or Dubwool, but I love their shinies.
And taking Vileplume's line in this forest kind of motif, I have Teddy Ursa, Ursaring, and Ursaluna. I really liked what they did with Ursaring. Ursaring was one of my favorite Gen 2 Pokemons to begin with also, and now that it has an evolution that is also a ground type, I had to include it in here. So leaving kind of our creepy forest, we're going into more of like a polluted and kind of like rundown area, and leading the charge on this one here, replacing Paris and Parasect, I have Corsola and Cursula.
Oh, that's a good choice.
I have both types of Corsola on here, where the original Corsola is going to be the more common one, and the ghost type Corsola will be like a less common variant, because this area is newly polluted and has started dying. And of course, with Corsola and Cursula, you have their foil, Marini and Toxapex, so we're putting them in there too, because those two Pokemons as of Gen 7 are very in contrast with each other, where like Marini and Toxapex are Corsola's natural predators. So they're eating them and leaving behind the ghost type ones, as well as the pollution kind of going in. And Marini's a poison type.
Here's an aside. Is there any lore piece about Marini and the Galarian Corsola and Cursula?
Yes, Marini actually, I think in the Galar region, doesn't eat Corsola.
Because it would get messed up by the ghosts.
Probably, yeah. So they don't bother with each other. But in Gen 7, yeah, Marini eats Corsolas.
Yeah,
and
I know.
They're replacing Venonat and Venomoth. So a poison type is replacing a poison type in this one here. And to continue on with this theme of pollution and everything, replacing Diglett and Dugtrio, we have everybody's favorite Trubbish and Garbodor.
Yep.
Yeah, gotta have them on there. And it's right from the beginning. Trubbish I originally thought was trash, but I would be right because it actually is trash, but not trash because it's adorable. So gotta have Trubbish and Garbodor on there because they are great. I thought they were poison dark for the longest time, but they're just straight poison. And concluding kind of like the pollution or poisoned area, I have Inkay and Malamar replacing Meowth and Persian on the original decks at 52 and 53. Inkay and Malamar, Psychic Dark. I think the only other Pokemon that might have it, I know for sure Hoopa has it in its alternate form, but I'm not sure if any other ones have
Hoopa
Psychic Dark.
having it? Really?
Hoopa, yeah, the other form of it, not the little one, like the really big one with like 6 arms.
No, I didn't know that it
that's
changed.
Psychic Dark. Yeah, they changed type from Psychic Ghost to Psychic Dark. Yeah, so Hoopa, Inkay and Malamar, I always thought the evolution mechanic was very, very cool. Inkay is very cute. Malamar is very like imposing and edgy. And to evolve it, you got to flip your console upside down at the right level. Alrighty, so now we're entering kind of like a mini biome, which is kind of like a fire cave or a volcano. And leading the charge on this one at number 54 and 55, I have Darumaka and Darmanitan. I really like these Pokemon. They're kind of like derpy and dancy. I like that. Darmanitan, if it's in its Zen mode, gets fire. And
which one? Yeah. Is it? So this is the fire version, like
yeah,
original.
The fire version. But I wanted to give the other one a Snowflake's chance in hell, so it'll be in there also at a very small percentage, maybe, as the ice types, and then the Zen form of Ice Darmanitan is Ice Fire. So it can, like, okay, you're in a volcano, so it's still going to be like breathing fire and stuff. So I thought that would be cool. Next up, replacing Psyduck and Golduck, I have Salandit and Salazzle because Poison Fire is great, and I really like the idea. Salazzle was good. I really enjoyed it, and I farmed it forever until I got the female one so I could evolve it.
I kid you not. I think all of us were on the same page with Salandit when it was announced. Like, oh my God, Salandit's gonna evolve into this amazing Pokemon. We're so excited for it. And then it gets the gender exclusive evolution that just like sucked all the hype out of that.
I still thought Salazzle was good.
I don't think there's an issue with the gender exclusive evolution, but I just didn't like Salazzle, you know?
Like it just took so long to get female Salandit. I hate when they do that, honestly.
It's a poison type that can actually deal with steel types. So I thought that was kind of cool, and I
Yeah,
had one on
that's
my
true.
team because of that. And lastly, taking care of our like volcano cave, I have Hisuian, Growlithe, and Arcanine because of the fire rock type. Thought it'd be kind of cool. And then, of course, if you want the pure fire type to get rid of the, I guess, the quad weakness to water, the regular fire ones can be in there too. Thought it would be kind of cool to include them. So whenever like the Pokemon, at least in my mind, whenever there's like the different variants, I want to include both of them in there, just as like a smaller chance to find them, not to like leave anyone out or leave anything behind, right? So next up, we're kind of still sticking with kind of like a cave motif, and this time we're going to like more of like a mystical cave or like a crystal cave. And starting us off at number 60 through 62, placing the Poliwag line, I have Tynamo, Electric, and Electros.
Nice.
I used Electros in my Gen 5 team. Thought it was really cool because of it's a pure electric type with Levitate, which meant that it couldn't be hit by ground type moves. So it eliminated a weakness right there. So I thought that was really cool. I thought the design was really cool. It's kind of like this like leech almost.
Mm-hmm. Electros is really underrated.
Electros is one of those Pokemon that the jump to 3D just hurt it so much.
It did.
I don't think
yeah.
it was the jump to 3D that hurt it. I think it was just the animation that they gave because they made it constantly swimming.
Yes, it's definitely that. But I mean, yes. But in general, it is a very cool Pokemon. So very good choice.
Continuing on with this Crystal Cave kind of theme, I have Abra, Kadabra, and Alakazam staying on the list in their spot. Alakazam is one of my favorite psychic types, and I think it's really cool to have on there. Numbers 66 through 68. I have Impidimp, Morgrim, and Grimmsnarl. Dark Fairy
Damn,
types.
you got rid of Machop.
I got rid of the fighting types. Honestly, Machop, Machoke, Machamp, we've seen a lot of them. It was the carry Pokemon in Gen 7, in Gen 8. They were around. It got like the really big, tall, like fighting Machamp. I think we need to kind of like just forget about them for a little bit. Not like permanently forget, but I'm putting in Grimmsnarl's line because Dark Fairy, like an evil, mischievous spirit. I really like that idea, and it kind of continues on with this like crystal, mystical kind of cave feeling. A little bit of mischief can't go wrong. Chaos is always a little good, in small doses, of course.
And that I love Impidimp, and like that line is such a cool line.
The shiny was interesting.
Yeah, so definitely was interesting.
Okay, next up, replacing Bellsprout's line, I have Togepi, Togetic, and Togekiss. This is another one that, if you know me in Pokemon, I love my Togekiss just because it is a wall, and with Serene Grace, it can just sit there and air slash you to death, and you can't do anything about it because you keep flinching. If you brought your Togepi in from Gen 3, it could learn Body Slam, which also has a 60% chance to paralyze with Serene Grace, so I like that combo. Just paralyze and air slash and flinch your opponent to death. All right, so that takes us out of the Crystal Cave, and I have a few just like random Pokemon in here just to kind of like throw around. Like maybe there's like a water patch in one of these caves or something, and I got like Wingull and Pelipper coming in at 71 and 72. Sorry, at 72 and 73, replacing Tentacles line. And replacing Geodude's line, I have Magnemite, Magneton, and Magnezone. Magnezone's a real strong Pokemon in my opinion, and I always enjoy my playthroughs where I can get a Magnemite. I always go up to Magnezone, and the shiny makes it gold. Next up, I didn't really know where to put this in a motif. I call it my bug block. So 77 through 87 are all bug types.
Wow.
So 77,
All
78. Joltik and Galvantula. Bug Electric. 7980. Dewpider Araquanid. Bug Water.
Araquanid, my favorite murderer.
Yes. 8182. Larvesta and Volcarona. Bug Fire. Number 83. Heracross. Bug Fighting. 8485. Snom and Frostmoth. Bug Ice. 8687. Dwebble and Crustle. Bug Rock. I wanted to get a bunch of different bug / something else types, and even going back to the very beginning, I have the 3-stage bug Pokemon with Orbeetle being Bug Psychic and Beedrill being Bug Poison.
Where's Scyther and Caesar, though? Maybe later. We'll find out.
Yeah, maybe later. I may have forgotten about them.
How do you forget about Scyther and Caesar? And more importantly, Cleavor, who doesn't like giant
I would have
baby-
wanted to include Cleavor on here, but I had no other like 3 stages that I could kick out.
Well, they're technically not a 3-stage, right? They're technically a 2-stage.
Or it would have to be like a 2-stage followed by a 1-stage.
Yeah.
There
Technically,
is a
you
way to
can't do it,
finagle it, but I couldn't make it work because I couldn't cut anything else. And besides, Scizor gets a lot of love.
Need to give some love to Crustle.
Honestly, Crustle and Dwebble I find are very fun, and also with Pokemon Unite, Crustle has wormed its way into my heart. Alrighty, so that's the bug block done. Next up, we're going to a haunted house. With this one here, I also had a little bit of fun with the theming on this. So we're in a haunted house, and we have a wary warrior and a wary traveler in the form of Farfetch'd and Sirfetch'd going through the haunted house. They are greeted by Gligar and Gliscor, bats. Then, of course, 92 through 94, you have the Gengar line. I had to include it. Gengar's a staple on my team, always. You have Spiritomb doing its creepy stuff in there as well as number 95. Both forms of Zorora and Zoroark in here as well. So Zorora and Zoroark being like pranksters and tricksters doing illusion stuff, but then you also have their dead variants in the form of the normal ghost types in there. A small chance being scary, doing that kind of stuff. And Basculin and Basculegion as well at 98 and 99. Basculegion probably is my favorite Pokemon coming out of Pokemon Legends Arceus. I thought it was just such a really cool type. I farmed it out, and I got 2 of them in the same patch of water, one male, one female, and I have both of them on my team because it's just like I have a giant purple fish and a giant yellow fish. And it's just really good to show off to the people that don't have the other one.
You're funny.
Yep. All right. So kind of leaving our ghost area, I guess these guys can also count. I have Voltorb and Electrode, but the grass electric type, because I always thought that they were like toys.
Angry
of fruit.
Electrode?
So yeah, Angry Electrode. Why not? And yeah, so I have them in here as like haunted, maybe like toys or something. Grass electric is a really interesting type, and I don't think it appears anywhere else outside of, I think, Rotom. So yeah, that's in here. So, and then I have some generic water Pokemon coming in after at 102 and 103. I have Mantike and Mantine. I always thought they were kind of cool, and Manta Rays are cool. And then I also have Wailord, Wailord's line. So Wailmer and Wailord at 104 and 105.
Where's Skitty?
Yeah, exactly. Where's Skitty?
Couldn't get Skitty to fit.
You can always get Skitty.
I really wanted to have Skitty and Delcatty in here just for the memes, but again, as I said, they wouldn't fit.
They really wouldn't fit.
So next up, I have like a cave kind of theme here, and this is the part of the Kanto Dex where there's like 3 1-stage Pokemon in a row, and I'm like, okay, what 3 1-stage Pokemon kind of fit the same theme? And I'm like, oh, I know, Lunatone, Solrock, and Minior.
They're cool. That's actually a really cool trio.
Lunatone and Solrock are both rock psychic, and Minior is rock flying. So you have the sun, the moon, and a star. Coming at 109 and 110, I have Rockruff and Lycanroc. Lycanroc has the three various stages, and I would assume that you'd be able to pick one of the 3 depending on when you evolve it. Coming back to my ground roots, I got Drillbur and Excadrill coming in at 111 and 112, and that's replacing Rhyhorn's line. Ground types replacing ground types. 113, I have Rotom in here, and all of the Rotom types. I always think that Rotom is a great Pokemon to include on Pokédex just because how versatile it is. And of course, at 114, everyone's other favorite bug rock type, I got Shuckle.
Yeah. Is that 3 for 3 for Shuckle?
I think it's 3 for 3 for Shuckle. And
Nice.
at Matteo, you're gonna have to bleep this one out, but you don't Shuckle with Shuckle. Also keeping up with kind of like the cave kind of idea. I have Torkoal in here also. Equally could be in like the volcano area that I described earlier. Torkoal at 115, replacing Kangaskhan. And at 116 and 117, I have Riolu and Lucario. So fighting steel with Lucario. And then I have at 118, 119, replacing Goldeen and Seaking. I have Scraggy and Scrafty.
Scraggy and Scrafty.
Yeah, so Riolu and Lucario always seem kind of like noble and like almost like a regal kind of fighter. Scraggy and Scrafty are more like devious and chaotic, and I felt like they were like good as like natural rivals in this kind of cave environment. So 120 through 128 are kind of just like Pokemon that I would want to throw in just to like all of the previous zones that I've described. Actually, you know what? I think like 120 through, now that I'm looking at it, I think until for the rest of them, they're kind of just like all like here and there scattered around. You could find these anywhere. At 120, 121, if we're following along with the Kanto Dex, Staryu Starmie is being replaced with Snover and Abomasnow. This is another lock on my list because Abomasnow. Obama. So Abomasnow, when I was doing a Pokemon Platinum Nuzlocke, I was on the way over to the Ice City in the north, and I found a shiny Snover. And I'm like, okay, I'm saving this, and I have to transfer it out right away. I broke my Nuzlocke to catch the shiny Snover.
That takes precedent.
It does. Yeah, I'm sorry. If you find a shiny in a Nuzlocke, screw the rules. And Abomasnow is blue, where it would be green. So I thought that was really cool. Kind of like it's a frozen tree. At 122, I have Klefki because Klefki is so broken. Yeah, Klefki is just absolutely broken, and it is like one of my favorite things to like throw on my team just to troll my friends. And as a bit of like a foil to Klefki, I also have Comfey in there because it's also kind of that like ring-ish Pokemon, except instead of a ring of keys, it's a ring of flowers. So I thought that'd be interesting, and what the heck. It's a one stage, I didn't really know what else to do with it. Coming in at 124, replacing Jinx, which is a terrible, terrible Pokemon. I have Hawlucha, which is a really, really awesome Pokemon. So of course,
3 for 3 on talking crap about Jinx.
Yep.
Yep.
And is it also 3 for 3 for Hawlucha?
Very begrudgingly on my part, but yes.
Yeah, Hawlucha's great. Fighting Flying is a really fun type to play around with, and Flying Press as a dual type move in Spirit is really, really fun. Next up at 125, I have Wishy Washy because Wishy Washy is really cool with the schooling ability. And with what we saw in Pokemon Snap, I thought that was really, really interesting where they made it like really terrifying in its schooling form.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really, really cool, even though like we knew it's like, okay, it's a Pokemon game and it really wasn't presented as scary, but just like the situation to which you find it was just like, here's this giant fish. Oh wait, it's just a school of Wishy-Washy. Coming in next at 126, I got all these bugs and I need an Anteater. So I included Heatmore, pure fire type on this one here. It is most notably known for eating the bug type Durant. Next up, I have Duraludon on here or does Duraludon count as a pseudo?
Duraludon is not a pseudo.
Steel Dragon, great, awesome type, turns into a giant tower in its Gigantamax form. I think it's really cool. I had one on my team. Next up at 128, I have Stunfisk because I just had to. Stunfisk is
Which
great.
version?
Both. Why not? Yeah. The base one that I have would be Ground Electric, but Ground Steel could be like a small percentage kind of thing. But Ground Electric would be the main type that I would go for.
Stunfisk is another one of those meme Pokemon that just like I didn't really like at first, but it just slowly kind of grows on you.
On 129 and 130, I'm keeping Magikarp and Gyarados because they are awesome. Magikarp is great, another great derpy Pokemon. At level 25, it evolves into this like Mega Dragon, and it's great. Gyarados Mega evolves to be a Magikarp looking kind of like a fish dragon again, and that is just great. And while we're still in the water, a very rare Pokemon, one that I hunted for a very, very long time in Alola. I have Delmise, Grass Ghost, another one.
Why?
Delmise is great. It's creepy, and it's actually not the anchor itself. If you read up on some of the lore for Delmise, it's actually the seaweed that's growing on the ship parts and stuff that keeps it all together. That's what Delmise is. It's the plant. That's why it's ghost grass instead of ghost steel.
That's kind of cool.
And because I worked so hard for the Delmise, it had to be on here. Ditto keeping its place because, of course, every daycare needs its friend.
Its special friend.
Especially Dittos with certain types of personalities as well as certain type of stat distributions. So, of course, breeding Dittos are great. 133, we're keeping our Eevee. And keeping with kind of like some of the themes that I had here, where I had like this great grass plains, I had these caves, and I also had this tundra area. We're going with Glaceon, Leafeon, and Umbreon as the 3 evolutions to kind of keep with those kind of themes, because like caves are kind of like dark and scary and stuff. So okay, Umbreon could realistically exist in there, and then of course Glaceon out in the frozen tundra area, and in either of my forests I have Leafeon, so I thought that would be pretty cool to have them in there. Number 137, I have my Durant, because I thought it'd be like, you can't have Heatmore without Durant, and keeping up with the bugs, the bug types, it's Bug Steel, so there's that. For my fossil Pokemons, I have the one, the only, Lord Helix himself, Ammonite and Amistar. In all seriousness, Lord Helix is amazing, and death to the ways of the Dome. I'm sorry, Jules, you have failed us because you were a follower of the Dome.
The Dome is better.
Really, actually, like the reason why I picked Amistar is because I wanted to follow a bit of a motif with my fossil Pokemon. So like, what were like the two number one fossils that I think of in my head? I think of like an Ammonite, so like the swirly shell, and I also think of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So I have Tyrant coming in and Tyrantrum coming in as the other one. Realistically, Tyrant and Tyrantrum is the only smart choice if you're playing this game. But I wanted to pick two of my favorite ancient creatures, which is an Ammonite and a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and that's why I have these two here. And keeping up with like these ancient Pokemons and things like that, I have at 142, I have Unknown, because collecting all of them is very fun. And it's something that I generally like to do whenever I'm playing Pokemon games. I will always try to go and collect the entire alphabet, including punctuation marks. Also, speaking of old things and fossils, I have Relicanth at 143 because, again, there's that one stage kind of like fossil Pokemon. Even though Relicanth technically is still alive in the present day, it is described as a living fossil. So I wanted to throw that in there, kind of like keeping up with the ancient theme. Relicanth is another Pokemon that in and Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I did the fishing trick to try to get a shiny one. I never got it because my chain would always break, but it is something that I spent a lot of time trying to get. So now 144, 145, and 46 are our trio. Keeping up again with kind of like that theme that I was going with. This time here, though, I'm thinking of, okay, I have a great ice tundra, and I have these like two distinct caves. I have like a regular cave system, and I have like a mystical kind of cave system. So I had to go with the three base Regis: Regirock, Regice, and Registeel. They're my favorite trio, and they kind of match this motif that I've been kind of keeping going through with my 151. And I think they're really, really cool, and they kind of fit. Like Regirock can kind of be living in the volcano, or like a traditional deep cave. Regice is out in the tundra area, kind of like roaming around, keeping everything cold. Maybe it's the reason why everything's cold. And Registeel kind of like hardened metal minerals kind of thing, and I feel like it would work well in kind of like a mystical kind of whimsical cave, or maybe there's like some kind of like factory or like drill or something, and there's a lot of metal in this place, so I thought that would be kind of cool. As for my pseudos, there's only real one choice for me, and it's the Garchomp line. It's ground type, it's a dragon, it's cool, it's a shark. You got to keep it in there. Garchomp is the best. I love it. I'm not actually a big fan of its Mega, but 150 has to stay Mewtwo. Mewtwo is the first legendary. It is the best legendary because it's able to stand on its own 2 feet. It doesn't need a counterpart. Mew was always considered a mythical Pokemon. I never really considered like Mewtwo and Mew as like a duo in the sense of like Lugia and Ho-Oh, or like Xerneas and a Voltail or something like that. Right? They've always kind of been like together. Mewtwo is just like standalone. But Mewtwo is the only legendary that has a traditional Mega Evolution, and it also has 2 of them, so it has the X and Y form. So, and I would like you guys to try to guess what my mythical Pokemon is, based on everything that you've heard.
Well, I know you like Bug, so I'm going to go with Genesect.
Yes. It has to be.
Yes, you are correct. Genesect, Bug Steel. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because, like, I know in the actual lore of the game, Genesect is an experiment from, I think, Team Galactic. They were experimenting on like ancient Pokemon in the past, and they've created this like machine that's capable of like flying around, shoot things, and like it's a man-made machine type Pokemon. In my headcanon for this lore here, Heatmore are running rampant, eating all of the Durants and everything. So the Durants, one of them was able to evolve into Genesect, and it's the first of its kind. And then going back the other way, Heatmore was able to like maybe evolve into like, I guess if I had one extra legendary, I would put Heatran on here, but maybe that evolution hasn't happened yet. So I don't know. I like crafting this little story of this like hypothetical region, right? And I felt like it told a story with my 151, so I tried to do things a little differently.
I have to give you credit though, Gino. Like your list is very creative. I like how you've weaved a story. It's sort of similar how like my list was kind of based on how you would approach Kanto and go through Kanto in the order that game goes in, but you just essentially created your own region, which is a very, very creative take on the topic.
I don't know how good like the balance would be because a lot of these Pokemon are like it wouldn't be very balanced, but like these are a lot of my favorite Pokemons, and like most of the lines are like Pokemon that I actually use on my team at one point or another.
Yeah, but let's be real. All of our lists are completely imbalanced. Like there's reliance on one type more than another. It's like all our favorites. Like it just doesn't make none of them really make sense in that regard. But picking your favorites is the main thing that matters.
Speaking of like the numbers and the stats and all that kind of stuff, exactly. I have 29 of 151 on this list are from the original Kanto starters, so around 1/5, so 19-ish%. And I also have a little pie chart on the screen. I think I'll Jules, I'll send you the data for this pie chart here actually. And if you take a look at these numbers, like they're all relatively even. Like I got 14 grass types, 15 fire types, 24 water, 15 normal, and so on. Like if we're taking a look at here, everything is kind of around between 3 and 9%.
Except that dang water type.
Yeah, water is like actually at the 9% on there. Next up is my ground type, which is coming in at 8%, and then surprisingly rock at 7%. And the lowest percentage I have on here is fairy at 3%.
Or fairy type.
Well, there's also like not a lot of fairy type Pokemon if you really think about it, and a lot of them are just like very like pink and cutesy. The only one that really breaks the trend is like Grimmsnarl's line, and even at that, it's kind of whimsical, but it's very imposing. Like we need more like evil spirit kind of things.
Yeah, some little tricksters.
Yeah, like things like that. I mean, like instead of like cutesy fairies, we need like evil fairies, like original.
Yeah, like Mawile.
Yeah,
would play this game.
I really enjoyed this miniseries that we decided to do. Jules, your dream was realized, and I think that we should do more little fun game series like this in future episodes.
I will be sure to sleep more and bring my dreams to the table.
I feel like this one was a little shorter compared to your guys's, but I really liked adding in my little story component and stuff, so I felt like that was also quite fun. Maybe we can get Riley and Joe in here, and Joe's Pokédex will only comprise of 2 Pokemon, Trubbish and Garbodor.
Yep, and Riley's will only comprise of Gen 1. He won't change any of them, except for maybe the fire starters to...
No, Riley would definitely get rid of Dragonite. He hates Dragonite.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But no, he would change Charmander to Fennekin, and that's about it.
He would add Scizor as well.
Yeah, I think he would, yeah.
And Giancarlo. You gotta get Giancarlos.
Yeah, Giancarlo gotta be in here. It would be nothing but competitive teams. And competitive Pokemons.
But in any case, this is the tentative, at least, end to this series. Perhaps we will revisit in the future. Gino, would you like to sign us off?
Of course. All right, so that brings us to the end of today's quest. If you liked what you heard today, hit that like, subscribe, or follow button on your platform of choice. If you want to contribute to the conversation, let us know any ideas for upcoming quests, or ideas, or just share your thoughts with us. Tell us what you thought of this series. Tell me that mine was the best, obviously. And leave us a comment. We do read all of them. Anyways, we'll see you next time at the Hub World. Matteo?
Microsoft, make a new Banjo game. See you, everybody.
Bye.